What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? We are in the main discussion topic of this week's episode, and I told you guys I had a guest. I hyped it last week. I hyped it at the top of the show. This is a young brother who I will say we've been following each other for a few months now, and I've been following him, listening to his podcast, and you guys should too. If you like this podcast, you're gonna love his shit. That's just period, point blank. We got Mr. Rod himself from the Blunt Effect podcast. What's going on, bro?
Nothing much, brother. Just trying to maintain, trying to, do everything the right way. I'm blessed, got a good family, got a good head on my shoulders. Everything is going good for me. So I appreciate you having me on your show, bro. I enjoy what you do as well, and to see everything that you do and see everything that you're bringing to the table as far as your authenticity and you staying true to yourself, bro. It's people like you that make it, make it good to watch your content, because you got a lot of people who just say anything and just do what's popular, and to see somebody like you is creating his own lane and staying true to himself, bro. We need a lot more people like you.
I appreciate that, man. I really do. Like, I remember when I first started out, and people were like, "Damn, man!" My first episode, they were like, "Damn, that's deep. You think people gonna want to listen to it?" My job isn't to worry about how many people want to listen to it. My job is to be like whoever does listen to it, I want them to leave thinking, and that's really helped me, man. So I appreciate all those words, bro. I can't say enough about that.
Yes,
and you do it too. But we're gonna get into it because this first section is before we get into the actual discussion topic, which is impact and revenue. We're gonna talk about you.
Okay.
So the Blunt Effect podcast.
Yes,
first of all, tell them. I think they could probably, if they follow you, they could probably figure out the name. But first, tell them what made you decide that name. What made you start it? We want to hear the process.
Really for me, of course, it's the obvious. I'm not going to go too much into detail about it, but it's the obvious. And I feel like, when you're partaking in recreational activities, quote unquote, I feel like sometimes your mind goes to a different level and you have a different thought process on the way things are and the things that you see around you. And it's not always just like, oh, I'm just going to smoke and enjoy and relax and have fun and all kinds of things like that. Like sometimes it's more to it on a philosophical level as well. So for me, it was just taking thoughts that I have, like especially when I'm under the influence, I guess you could say, seeing things that I see on TV, especially nowadays and politics and things like that. It just made me think on a different level. And it really just started with me like talking shit on Facebook, like seeing stuff that's going on and just like putting my input on it, and people not necessarily liking what I say, but it started conversations. And then that people were just telling me like, bro, you should start a podcast, bro. Like, and I thought, and just like we said earlier, I'm like, bro, I don't know if I can talk that long. Like I can say a little bit here and there, but I don't know if I can uphold a conversation if I had to do it by myself for so long. But once I tried it, bro, it was just like, I didn't realize I had so much to say. Like it's easy to think about stuff when you're like sitting alone, but when when you get in front of the camera and it's something that you're passionate about, and I think that's what it was for me, was the type of subjects that I picked to choose and talk about. These are subjects that I'm passionate about. These are things that I've lived and experiences that I've seen, or whether it's something that I've seen somebody else go through. And it's easy to watch other people talk about stuff like this, especially when they're celebrities, because they don't necessarily relate to us as people, as far as like middle class people or lower class people, because they're at a certain level of, celebrity, or they have a certain amount of money in their pocket. But for me, it was more or less wanting to make my podcast relatable and talk about things that people could relate to on all levels, whether it be politics, whether it be personal stuff, just to kind of give everybody that sense of knowing that you can make it through something. If you got something that's going bad, or a situation that's not necessarily ideal, it's a lot. I say it's easy for celebrities to say things to uplift you because they're already there. They got all the money, they got all the statue, they got all that stuff. But for somebody like me or you to come to the table and say, hey, I've been in your shoes. Like I'm going through the same stuff right now. You know what I mean? So I can help you. We can help each other. That's the type of vibe that I wanted to bring to the table. On top of, the extracurricular and things like that. I felt like that would be something that, people who do the same thing I do could sit back, relax, and relate to, and, just kind of get a different perspective on life, especially from somebody at my age. I feel like I'm still young, and when people hear the things that I talk about and what I've been through, I sound like an old head, and I like that about myself, because people they respect me more, because they don't just look at me as a young cat or just a young and dumb kid. Like when they hear me talk, that gives them a whole different perspective of me.
For sure. For sure. And I think you touched on a couple of things there, right? When you to sit down and do this, right? I could talk. For example, if I wanted to talk about celebrity news, for example, there's no way I can fill a whole episode. I got maybe 3 to 5 minutes for you, right? So like that's
Exactly.
why the people who get into this and like do things or chase the things that they think is going to be popular or get them noticed, I I hats off to them if they can fill a full show with that because that shit don't interest me enough to talk about this long. Like when I get on my passionate rants and get to going, that's only because I'm talking about whatever I truly love, and I'll be talking about if it wasn't for the podcast. So I'm glad that you've reached that point. And so like you started your podcast during the pandemic, right?
Yes, sir.
And there's a lot of podcasters who started during the pandemic that you can tell once this is over and they're back to life, they're probably not going to be as passionate about this as what they were. You, on the other hand, like I said, I've listened to you. I've listened to every episode that you had. I think I came on you probably about five or so episodes in when
Okay.
we first started following each other. But after that, I've listened to every episode you've had since then, and you can tell this isn't just a thing to do because that you can't go outside for you. So, what was it like starting the podcast during the pandemic?
For me, honestly, bro, it really just like it gave me more time. It gave me the time to sit back and look at everything for what it really is and what's going on and appreciating things in life and things like that. And that's what really got me started just because, or, during the pandemic, just because I feel like for other people, it seemed like because of what's going on, you wouldn't have enough time to do it. Or like you said, like you
Mm-hmm.
start to do it because you have the time when you're not working or whatever. But then once everything starts opening back up, you lose that passion for it. And for me, it
Yeah.
was more than that. It was just more or less me expressing my opinions because I'm an open mind. Like I'm always down to have a conversation with anybody. I'm always down to listen to what somebody has to say because I know that nobody's always going to agree with what I have to say, and I'm not always going to agree with what somebody else says. But it's about how we have conversation, and it was just about that alone. Like it had nothing. It really had nothing to do with the pandemic for me, as far as like the amount of time I was going to have to take because I was passionate about what I was talking about. So I mean, like, bro, seriously, I was getting up before work in the morning. Like I have to be at work at 9 a.m. I
Mm-hmm.
was getting up at like 7, and just like I already had what I wanted to talk about. I already knew what I was going to say. I already knew how my setup was going to be. So and this is during the pandemic. So luckily I was still blessed to be able to go to work, but that's another obstacle because not only do I not have the same amount of time that somebody has during the pandemic, I'm still going to work. So, and that was just another subject for me to talk about, just going through
Mm-hmm.
what's going on during the pandemic, people going through, people, essential workers, and me being an essential worker. I felt like that was one of those things that I could relate with people. And so the podcast, like, I mean, the pandemic really didn't have an effect on my timing. Like, if anything, it motivated me more to do it just because there was so much going on. There's so much to talk about, like you said, outside of celebrity news and things like that, because I'm not too big into celebrity news at all either. I mean, what I could say about celebrity news, there's probably a million other people saying the same thing, and I just feel like it's washed out. And I would rather come with some authentic content that's truly from my heart. So that's what it was for me. It had nothing to do with timing, except it was perfect timing because there was so much going on.
Yeah, yeah. Did you find like so you were essential work, which I didn't know that you were essential worker. So hats off to you because hats off
Appreciate
to
you,
the
bro.
essential workers out here because y'all are invaluable. Like for real, like, you can't put a value on what you guys do and bring to society. So hats off to you there. Um, did you find that creating and starting your podcast during the pandemic was it harder or was it easier to get people to listen to you initially because people were looking for something to do and to fill their time with at that point?
I feel like initially it was easier to get people to listen to me because when I started, when people were telling me I should do a podcast, and I was more or less like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But at the same time, I was kind of, optimistic towards it. So I was just kind of like, I mean, I could, but at the same time, I don't know. And then when I started talking about the probability of me doing it, more people became engaged. So at first, for me, it was just like, people were listening, people wanted to know what I had to say. And then it feels like as time progressed, when people realized that I wasn't coming with that same type of entertainment as far as like talking about celebrity news and going and doing like things that quote unquote go viral and things like that. Like I was coming with like some real heartfelt, not heartfelt, but like deep topics. I think it kind of drew people back a little bit. Like they kind of looked back like, oh, this wasn't what I expected. But at the same time, in my opinion, I was just like, fuck it. Like with everything that's going on, it's like this is what I feel, and I'm gonna say what I want. I'm gonna express how I feel, and this is the perfect platform to put it on, especially with so many people that engage in social media now. This is just people get on social media and say whatever they want to say, but then in real life, like they're nothing like that. But I'm the type of person like I say what I mean, whether it's on camera, on audio, or in real life. So I have no issues and no problem with saying what I want to say, and I kind of like the anticipation of, especially like if it's something that somebody doesn't agree with, like, bro, I'm all for it, especially on the podcast. I'm like, bro, let's do it because that's what I want. Like, I want people to hear what somebody else's opinion is because it's easy to agree with somebody when everybody agrees with you. But when you have a different perspective of things and people can see one side of things and another side of things, then it kind of gives you something to go off of and you can decide for yourself instead of just listening to what somebody says and it's all just one opinion.
That's a fact. And the because you touched on a lot there. Like the thing that I always wanted to do with this, like when I first started, and shout out to one of my friends, his name is Andrew Bello. He's a Trump supporter. And so like back when we first started, it was right when Trump got elected. So we used to have a lot of conversations on this podcast about like different sides. I remember people used to be like, I can't believe you would have a Trump supporter here. And I'm like, I don't have to agree with him to have a conversation. I'm like, we walk away both learning something every time we have a conversation. Even if I don't agree, if I think what he says is batshit ass crazy, which he's a very intelligent person, so it's never that. At least I walk away learning, all right, this is how Trump supporters feel and think. Now I know I'm better equipped to have conversations with them.
Exactly.
So it's like people we fall into this thing where we start turning into an echo chamber, right? Like we just want to hear people with our same thoughts and ideas and we embrace them. And I get embracing like-minded people, but at the same time, I love having people around me and close to me that think differently than what I do because you can offer a completely different perspective that I didn't see. And if I had somebody around who just thought like I did, we both blind as shit. So
yes,
I don't understand it. I don't understand that whole having people who just think, act, and do the same things as you do all the time because I need to have people who can see where my blind spots are because we all have them.
Exactly. I feel the exact same way, bro, because I feel like if I'm always surrounded by people who agree with everything I'm saying, I'm never going to progress because everybody's just going to like everything that I do and everybody's going to be content with what I do. Like, I like when people tell me stuff that, might not necessarily be quote unquote correct or right because then it makes me look and take a second guess and look back, and even if I don't necessarily agree, at least I'm taking the time to look back and say, okay, I see what they meant, but I'm passionate about what I said on this or on that. And I feel like a lot of people, they have their own opinions, but then when you disagree with them, then it's just like it hits them so much harder and they just don't want to have that conversation. I feel like that the politics is like really the biggest thing because like you said, bro, like
politics is such a sensitive topic, man.
Yeah, bro, like I've had plenty of conversations with people that are Trump supporters and I've had the same conversations you've had. Like people are like, how can you have that conversation when he's a Trump supporter? I'm like, I don't care that he's a Trump supporter. Like I have my opinion and he has his, but it's not about the difference in opinions. It's about how we express them and how we're able to talk to people. And the biggest thing about that and other situations outside of politics is that people just simply don't know how to communicate with each other in order to voice their opinions. And, because nobody's ever going to be on the same page. Like, I feel like it's not human for us to be on the same page all the time or to be on the same accord. Like, that's those are things that make people better and those are things that can sometimes make people worse, but I feel like it's always good to have different opinions because it allows you to see different perspectives, especially if it's somebody who's involved in this situation. Like you always want to have the opinion of somebody who is directly involved in the situation, especially in politics. At least that's my opinion because these are the people that that are on the front lines and the backs of the people that the country is built off of. So I feel like their opinion matters.
For sure. And there you have it with that. What's the biggest thing that you've learned since starting your podcast?
The biggest thing that I've learned personally is that everybody's not going to like what I say, bro. Like, and I feel like for a while I always had that thought like, oh, I don't care what nobody says. I don't care, blah, blah, blah. Until I really started talking about things that people didn't want to hear. like as far as like politics and speaking my opinion and speaking my truth as far as like being a black man in America and being a black man in society, because I grew up with, a mixture of people, and I have just as much white friends as I have black friends. And it was like
Mm-hmm.
growing up, being young, you don't think about stuff like that. You just think about having fun and enjoying life. But then
Yeah.
when you get to a certain age, like right now, and you see this stuff every day on the news and you're being observant of what's in front of you as far as what the media portrays, I feel like I wanted to talk about those things, and the reactions that I got from people was just like, wow, like, this is what you think about me? Like, all I did was just, I didn't say nothing bad about, I didn't say fuck Trump. I didn't say he's a
Yeah.
piece of shit, or, I just stated my opinion about him as far as what he says in regards to people who are not like him. That's as simple as
Yeah.
I can put it without, stepping on toes or pushing people's buttons and things like that. But,
Mm-hmm.
and the reaction that I got, just that was just humbling. It made me know, it let me know that number one, I'm doing something that's good, because I'm being real, like I'm being real and I'm being honest. Like I'm not doing and talking about stuff just to bring popularity or just to have some sense of, just to bring people, to get people's attention. I'm talking about things that are near and dear to me. So when somebody doesn't necessarily agree with what I say, and it's something that I'm passionate about, it doesn't necessarily steer me away or discourage me, because it just motivates me more, because it lets me know like somebody's out there listening. And just like you said when we were talking earlier, it wasn't about whether people like what I said or not. It was about the message that people received
Mm-hmm.
once they heard what I said.
Yeah. Nobody, I'll tell you this, nobody receives a message quite like somebody who disagrees with you. Because for them to disagree, that means that some people just, some people will hear one thing and automatically disagree. But I mean, if you can have a conversation with somebody who fundamentally disagrees with you and they point out why they disagreed with you, all that meant is that you were entertaining and intelligent enough in the way that you communicated your thoughts, that even though they disagreed, they still wanted to hear what the hell you had to say. And
Exactly,
people don't
bro.
see it that way. Like people will automatically like fly out. How dare you disagree with me? Like, nah. If you've listened to what I've had to say and you disagree, no, you're the one I want to have the conversation with, because
Exactly.
you've listened enough. So let's
Exactly.
talk about it.
And a
So
lot of people, bro, like a lot of people disagree with stuff, and then when you ask them why they disagree, they don't even know why the fuck they disagree. Like they don't like what you
exactly,
said, and it's just like I don't want to talk about it, but really you don't know why. You just don't like that I said something that you didn't want to hear.
exactly. Well, let's get in to the topic at hand for tonight. And this is a deep one. Like I had told you before, I can't remember when we first started messaging each other, but I wanted to have you on for a while. I'm all about bringing someone on when I feel like the conversation is going to be great, rather than just have them on to fill space. And this is one that I was like, after our phone conversation, I was like, you know what? I feel like this topic came to me, and I was like, this would be perfect for Rod. So this is a conversation about impact versus revenue, right? Because the thing is, we all have to make money for a living, right?
Yes, sir.
There's a cross section of us that actually are able to do what we love for a living, right?
Yes, sir.
But then you have to balance it out. Are you doing what you're doing because you love it and you know that it's going to impact you, the people around you, or the people that you interact with, whatever? Or are you in it, and does the money that you're going to be able to make doing that carry you through? And if that's the case, how long is that really sustainable? So I wanted to have a conversation from that point. First, let's define impact, even though everybody should know what impact is, but let's define it. Impact: to have a strong effect on someone or something. So when you hear impact first, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
The type of impression, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like everybody or has an impression upon somebody, or something that's happened to them that has left an impression on them, that has molded them into the person that they are, or has molded them into the thought process that they think, or just going through life the way they go through life. So when I think of impact, we go through that in everyday life. Like every day we go
Mm-hmm.
through things, and we have situations that impact the way that we think, the way that we see people, the way that we perceive things, and the way that we are perceived. So I feel like impact is something that is, you know, underrated, because a lot of people don't think about it. They don't think about, the impacts and the things that they do and the things that happen to them throughout their day and throughout their daily life,
Mm-hmm.
that, in turn makes them who they are, or, makes them have a certain expression, whether they're pissed off about something, or whether they're happy about something, or whether they're upset, or, you know, people don't realize that the things that go on with them throughout life is because something impacted them in a certain type of way, whether it was positive or negative.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing is, when you we all have an impact in a degree, right? Like, well, that's the thing. There's a difference between having an effect on somebody's life and having an impact on somebody's life, right? You can walk up and you can give a bum on the street a hamburger, right? You've affected his meal, the way how he feels for the rest of that day.
Mm-hmm.
But when you make an impact on someone, I look at impact as being lasting, right? Being so rather than give that homeless man a cheeseburger because he's hungry, what if you're able to give him an opportunity and give him a job that gets him off the street? That changes his whole way of living. No matter what comes after that, he'll probably always remember the person who saw him and gave him a chance to give him an opportunity for a job. Or even if you point him in the direction, say, "Hey, go here. I know somebody who was hiring. I'll put in a word for you." So
Exactly.
that's the difference between having an impact and having an effect, right? So when I think about impact, to me, everything, and I talked about this in the last episode, it's a word that I kind of drill home. My photography company is called Legacy Visions, but I think about legacy. The way that you impact the people around you, the people that you interact with, directly correlates with whatever your legacy is when you're gone off this earth. The thing that I always I think of is my grandfather, for example. My grandfather, he had Alzheimer's like literally from the time I was probably like 9. So he was sick most of the life that I knew him, and then he passed away about 9 years ago. But the way that people to this day talk about him, like some of his old coworkers, the way that they talk about his work ethic, the way that they talked about how he used to be like, "Oh, come on with lunch. You don't have nothing to eat for lunch. My wife's making lunch. Come with me." And to hear the impact that he had on people's lives to that they still 30, 40, hell, I'm 34 years old, 40 plus years ago, they still talk about him with such reverence. That's legacy. You feel me?
Yes, sir.
And so when I think about making an impact, I think about how it correlates to whatever legacy I want to leave behind. And there's a good impact, there's a negative impact as well. We're going to focus on the good here because
Okay.
enough people talk about negative shit. We maybe can dab into it a little bit, but like, so that's what I think of when I think legacy. I mean, when I think impact. So the next question that I have for you is this, right? We live in cancel society.
Indeed.
Everyone has been canceled damn near at some point. I remember they tried to cancel Kendrick Lamar for not saying something at one point. Like he was MIA.
Yeah.
Then they tried to, where's Kendrick Lamar in this? And then it was cancel Kendrick. It was like, come on, man, this what we doing?
Yep. Yep.
One of the most positive brothers in our industry right now is Kendrick Lamar, and they try to cancel him. But nonetheless, I'm a Kendrick stan, so don't let me get on that shit. But how difficult do you think, or have you found that it is to have an impact when it seems like people are more likely to try to cancel you for speaking out or whatever that you do than allow the impact to kind of sit around? What do you think about that?
I think, being who you are and being true to yourself can have a major impact. And I think that's the biggest thing, is because a lot of people, they follow trends. A lot of people only do things because that's the trend to do it. Like, when you think about it, bro, when it comes to black advocacy and things like that, you didn't hear a lot of celebrities and a lot of people talking about it until, LeBron James started talking about it, because it was like for so long, there was always that cap on it. Like, don't talk about that. Like, they don't want to hear about that. And then you got people who just said, fuck it. People need to hear about this. When it comes from somebody like me who's got millions of dollars, then people who don't have money, they now have a voice because they see me, somebody who made it and was just like them. So I feel like in our culture, people get canceled because they're not real. Like, they only do things for clout, and they do things because it's trending and things like that. But it's like, you didn't have that same kind of energy when this stuff was still going on and we were still sitting here going through the same shit every day. And now, because LeBron's talking about it or so-and-so co-signed it, now you feel like it's okay to talk about it. And I feel like that's the reason why people get canceled, because on top of them doing just stupid and erratic shit in general, just fucking up their own legacy. But I feel like people get canceled just simply because they're not genuine. They only do things because other people are doing it and because other people are talking about it. And it's like, I understand it. I understand that you might be gaining a different type of benefit from this, because other people get, they get different benefits and things like that for talking about it. But if you're going to talk about it, you got to be real. You got to relate to the people who are actually going through it, and that's what keeps people, that's what keeps fans. That's what keeps people who are really down for you around, because they really see you for who you are, and they really see that you're relatable and that you can talk and that you can show sympathy for people when we're going through times like this, instead of just talking about it just because everybody else is struggling and making it a big thing and it's going mainstream. Now everybody wants to talk about it. It's easy to talk about it when it's mainstream, but have that same energy when nobody else is talking about it. Bring that same attention to these things when nobody else is talking about it.
I mean, I think, and to kind of bring home, you said genuineness, right? And to bring all that home, when you think of like Colin Kaepernick, right? Kneeling, losing his whole career before Black Lives Matter was a big thing. You feel me? Yeah. Now that we've gone through several summers of black men being shot unarmed and women too. Let's not forget that their sisters losing their lives as well. After we got through that and the George Floyd and the riots, now people are finally starting to be like, you know what? This Kaepernick dude was on to something before everyone else. So when you think about like following trends, the same people and companies who were saying, look, I don't want to see kneeling during a football game, now they're starting to realize, oh shit, if we would have paid attention during that when it was just a football game, maybe we wouldn't have these riots like we're having now. See, that's the thing. It's like, and it's so crazy that it has to get to a boiling point for the majority of this country to really take note of shit. And that's what's disgusting about it. I know we're not here to talk about that. I don't want to get it bogged down in that too much, but for real, it's just like the people who were and even LeBron, shut up and play. Let's shut up and play basketball thing. Yeah. Now I bet you that they wish that they were that they would have listened to him then, because like people like LeBron who speak out and who are upfront about social activism and shit like that, they wield so much. If LeBron said right now, we're boycotting ESPN, I'm not playing any game that's listed on ESPN, whatever else, nobody who supports me, don't watch ESPN games. Do you know how many people in our culture would be like, all right, well, LeBron said this, fuck ESPN. We're not fucking with ESPN.
Bro. Definitely.
Like he could stop so many checks, and the power that he wields. And I like, and even more so than Jordan. I always say Jordan's a better player than than LeBron. But as far as this activism shit, LeBron is untouched as far as athletes go. LeBron wields so much power, not just in the NBA. When I say when it comes to sports, if LeBron wanted to call the top football players, baseball players, basketball, everyone would go to that meeting, and they'll all be on the same page.
Definitely.
So that's when you think about, that's the type of impact that we all should or want to have at some point. Not many of us ever will. He's the first one to ever do it. But so when you think of impact, he's definitely a great person to point out there. And so something else that we want to go to, and we may be coming off this list soon. This list was a jumping point, not necessarily us being beholden to it. Even in our podcasting, right? Even in our platforms. And I think this is what I said. I said this 2 years ago, and people basically were like, I get what you're saying, but you're being a little dramatic. But follow me with this. If Martin Luther King and Malcolm X had a platform like podcasting and Twitter and Facebook where they could reach hundreds and thousands and millions of people by either uploading a speech or tweeting something, what do you think they would do with it? And we sitting here in a culture that mainly what we do with it is we're watching fucking busted challenges and silhouette challenges and shit. You feel me? Yeah. So like, and don't get me wrong, it's great for that too. But for me personally, what I want to do, and I talk about crazy shit, and I say, I say stupid shit all the time, that's funny, but ultimately, what I try to use everything that I have for is for impact. It's cool to sit on Twitter and interact with people and talk shit and post memes and gifs, but at the end of the day, I need to do that to me, and I'm just not anything that I hold to anybody else. I need to be talking about shit that matters as much as I do any of that. And so that's what I try to do. That thought, once my brain switched to that, and I had that thought, my not only did my podcast grow, but that's when me producing content came. I had a stretch in which, bro, I kid you not, for 6 weeks straight, we kept, the one was breaking a record of the most downloads in a day. The next episode that dropped broke that one, and it broke that one. When I looked at that like 6 to 8 week stretch that was going on, it was because I was totally engaged and like all the extra shit, the fluff. Like, that was after "Get the Fluff Out" was the title of the episode, and I just was on this stretch of content that felt like it came. I said like my ancestors were speaking through me, bro. At that point,
Definitely.
and so that's what the impact that I want to have. And then to this day, the episode that I talked about depression, and I talked about at one. I was never suicidal. I feel like I always have to say this, but there was a point in my life where I seriously did not want to be here. I never thought about taking my life, but I did not want to be here.
Oh yeah.
And when I sat down and did that episode, I didn't know that was going to come out of my mouth. There are black men, and there was a couple of mothers who had their sons listen to it. When I tell you that episode was like 6 to 8 months ago, I still get emails about that episode to this day, and that's the legacy. That's the impact that I want to have with people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Most definitely. And with me, I feel the same way. Like that was my reason for podcasting. I feel like, I always wanted to make sure that I left a good impression on people. Not necessarily, I want to leave a good impression because that's always good, but I always wanted to make sure that people respect me for who I am, respect me for my authenticity, respect me for maybe not necessarily having the same opinion as them, and also respect me for the fact that I'm man enough to come to you and have a conversation with you like a man and not like an asshole. Now if it comes time that I have to be an asshole, then that's just, it is what it is, but
you got to embrace it sometimes.
Exactly.
You got to embrace the asshole.
Exactly. But, I feel like, what this generation lacks a lot of is morals and respect. And I feel like that has a huge impact on how we treat people and how people treat others and how we perceive things in life is, morals and respect. And I just feel like nowadays, with the podcast, and a lot of people don't talk about things like that. And that was something that I wanted to have behind my podcast. And like, I wanted people to look at me and see the exterior, they see the dreads, they see the beard, they see what I wear, they hear how I talk, but what I don't want you to listen to how I talk. I want you to listen to what I say, because what I say is where the message is. And if you just listen to how I talk and how I sound, the message is going to go over your head, because plenty of people are going to listen and be like, oh, I don't like how he sounds, or he's talking about some bullshit. I don't like what he's got going on in the background. And it's not about that. It's about listening to me and not just hearing my voice. And I feel like that's what a lot of people lack. Like, just like we talked about earlier, a lot of people, they lack listening. They just hear it. Like, they hear something, they just automatically like, fuck that. I don't want to hear that shit. You know what I mean? I don't want to hear that bullshit. Just like a song. Like, when you play a song, that first, 30 seconds is like the most detrimental part of the song, because in that first 30 seconds, you're going to either say, I don't want to listen to it, or you're going to listen to it, whether it be the beat that's catchy or whether they say something in the hook that's catchy, those first 30 seconds. So that's what I always try to, implement with myself. Like, I want to catch you with something, but I'm not going to catch you with nothing. I'm not going to catch you with anything that's outside of my personality. Like, I'm going to be real and I'm going to stick with what I'm talking about, but because that's the message that I want to send. But at the same time, I'm not going to be fake about it.
Yeah. Some people say shock shit just to say shock shit, right?
Exactly.
And that's the wrong type of shit to do. Like, for me, if I say something that's shocking, if I say something that people deem controversial, it's not because I thought it was. It's because that's just my damn opinion. Like, it is what it is. And I think that people trying to make an impact, and that's not even really an impact. That's just people trying to have a shock value. When they say some shit that they think is going to be controversial just because of that reason, it's like, come on, fam.
Yeah,
we see through that shit.
Facts.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. But so to get back to this impact and revenue thing, right? Okay, how do I want to word this? For us do you feel like people have to be happy in what they do to make money?
No, not at all. Because, just a perfect example of everybody who has a 9-to-5, like, I'm pretty sure that 90% of the people who go to work every day aren't happy with what they're doing, but they do it because they have to make money. There's a very small percent of people that do what they like, that get paid to do what they enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just how society is set up. I feel like society is set up to, You either got to go to work or you got to go to school. You ain't got time to worry about some shit that you want to do. You ain't got work. You ain't time to fucking worry about going to play basketball unless you're just that good that we can turn you into an athlete and make money off of you. Then maybe you can get a scholarship and go to college for free or something like that. But other than that, it's either go to work or go to school. And if you can't afford to go to school, then guess what you got to do? You got to go to work. So a lot of people generate revenue because like not doing anything that they enjoy doing, you know. And I feel like that takes the joy away from doing something that you want to do, because it's like you get up and it's just this sense of training that we've been through all our lives, that we get up, we go to work because we have to put food on the table, we have to provide, and you know, things like that, that we sometimes feel like we don't have time for ourselves. But that just goes to say, this is something I talked about in my last episode, was, you know, if you can make the time to go and get Jordans, you go stay in the line to go get Jordans, you know what I mean? Then you can make the time.
Give it to him. Give it to him.
Yes, sir. If you can make the time to go and get Jordans, and you can make the time to do something that you enjoy doing, you can take the time out to perfect your craft so that you're able to make money doing something that you like doing. Because how do you think Bill Gates got to where he was? I know for a fact. I mean, I don't know for a fact because I don't know Bill Gates, but I'm sure that Bill Gates, he was not always a billionaire. You know what I mean? They say he started Microsoft in like his basement or something.
Garage, something like that.
Yeah, like he started Microsoft in his garage, and you know, Jeff Bezos started Amazon in his garage. So like these are prime examples of people that, you know, they like what they did so much that they did go work a 9 to 5. And you said, you know what? Yeah, I'm staying up tonight. I got some shit to do. I got a goal to accomplish. And a lot of people, I feel like they use work as an excuse. I mean, I understand. I know it's
tiring. Say that again, bro.
I know it's tiring to get up in the morning and go to work and help your kids get ready for school and things like that. But you got to think about the people who are millionaires. Most millionaires went through the same thing you were going through. You know what I mean? Most of these people had jobs. Most of these people had families. Some of these people didn't have shit. You know what I mean? So if you are already living a half decent life and you're complaining about not having the time to go do something or being too tired, that's no excuse for me, because you have people like, bro, I follow this guy on Instagram. His name is Wallow267. He's an inspirational speaker. If you know who Gilly the Kid is, that's his cousin. So they do podcasts, and this man just got out of prison like 2 years ago. And this man is already a millionaire. So when I see that, and then I see people who, you know, they already have, and he did like 20 years in prison, bro. So we already had a 20-year head start on this man. And he's already come out and he's used his time productively and he's used his time wisely. So when people start talking about, oh, I can't do this because I don't have time, or I can't do this because I don't have the money, and it's like, you have the money and you have the time, you just aren't using it wisely. Because if you can go spend time to go stand in the line at the movie theater to go see that new movie that's coming out at 12 o'clock in the morning when you know your ass got to go to work, or you know you got some other things that you need to prioritize, then maybe you should take a little bit more time to do the things that make you happy in life and do the things that, you know, feel like you would be happy doing while generating money.
Yeah. I think so. Like you said, the generating of income is used to provide, right? It's also sometimes used to fuel your passion if you can do it. Like, this is why, like, for me, even though I got into investments and doing what I do for a living, and I absolutely loved it. I still love it to a degree, right? But I took the time and energy that went into that, and I put it into my photography company, my kids, my XYZ. So, like, I think sometimes we get so caught up in making money, and that does feel like happiness, that we forget that to find our passions within that. And that's even if you don't look to monetize your passion. Sometimes you need to have not sometimes. I feel like everybody should have something they're passionate about. And very often the adrenaline rush of other things can feel like passion and not really be it. And by that I mean, like, most of us spent time young, going to clubs, doing whatever, and that was fun. You feel me? That was fun. Yeah. It was awesome. At some point, you felt like, hey, I'm going to do this every Friday night.
Yep.
And then you fall off of that shit. Because while it was fun, while it gave you an adrenaline, while you probably met some amazing people doing it, I don't know anybody whose passion is going to the club, bro.
Facts.
like, I just don't, and that's not this. And I don't want to make it seem like people shouldn't have that experience to spend some time doing that, because hell, there's times where I don't like clubs because I fight, and when people step on my shoes, I don't like that shit. But I still go to bars and drink and shit from time to time. Yeah. But that's a very small chunk of my life now, where like back when I was 21, 22, that if I didn't have my kids and it was a weekend I didn't have to work, I was in somebody's club feeling on somebody's ass. That's what I was doing with my life. And that shit was fun as hell.
It definitely was.
And you can get caught up in that, but everything has its season. Eventually that time, and I look at it now, like if I would have discovered my love for photography back then instead of being all up in the club, where the hell would I be at now? And I've made it far now at this point. Like, and I only found this passion like 3 or 4 years ago at this point. So I get it. You know, we can get caught up in fun, and fun feels like passion, but fun can get confused for passion. You got to find what you're truly passionate about. Like I said, I don't know. I've been on this earth 34 spins, and I've lived in 6 different countries. I don't know nobody whose passion is being up in the club.
Facts. I don't know nobody whose passion is being in the club. And if it is your passion, then
hey, hats off to you. Yeah, hats off to you. But I think sometimes it feels selfish to find our passion, right? It feels selfish because it very often it takes time away from other things. It can take a lot of time, and it's not necessarily generating money or whatever. And it feels like, damn, why am I putting this time and thing into it? You're putting into it because that's what fills you up. You can't pour from an empty cup. Your passion is what fills you up. Other people, I truly believe other people cannot fill you up. They can help take your mind off things. They can help or take part in things that do fill you up. But I truly feel the passions in life are what fill you, and then you can pour out and do other shit.
Exactly. And with that being said, I feel like you're your own worst enemy. You know, a lot of people can tell you that you can't do something, but it's ultimately up to you to decide whether or not that you can do it. You know, anybody can tell you that you can't do something. Anybody can tell you that you can. I remember, and I'm sure you remember things like this as well, like your mother telling you that, you know, you were good at, for example, playing basketball, knowing damn well you suck. You know what I mean? But they tell you that to encourage you, number one, because they're paying for it probably, but number two, they tell you that because they want to encourage you and give you that sense of feeling like I can do this, you know what I mean? And it makes you want to get better at doing it, because knowing that somebody is encouraging, knowing that somebody's watching you and they like what you're doing, they like to see you enjoy what you're doing, you know, that is what is encouraging. But when somebody, you know, necessarily they tell you they don't like what you're doing, or, you know, that's can sometimes be discouraging. But at the same time, if you have the drive and you have the motivation, that's what motivates you, and that can boost your confidence into making you be like, you know what, yeah, I feel you, but fuck what you talking about. I'm about to come back harder. Like, I don't care what you talking about. I appreciate it, but now I'm about to use you as fuel and ammunition to do something better.
Man, listen to that. Listen to that. It's the things that and this has always been something about me. Back when I was younger and playing baseball and football, is that I can find fuel in the craziest of things. I remember one time I was playing football and I tackled this woman's son, and I heard her from the audience say, "Oh, my son's gonna get him next time." I killed that motherfucker the whole rest.
I know she was mad as hell.
Man, I killed that motherfucker the rest of the game. Just that little, me hearing your mama say, "Oh, my son's gonna get him next time." Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, to this day, I don't even know if that was his actually. She could have been talking about somebody else on the field, but because I thought it was the person that I just tackled, I'm killing you every play for the rest of the game.
Exactly.
As my dog goes the hell off. But so let's get back to talking impact, right? You've started podcasting, you got your passion going. This is definitely something from our conversations you see yourself doing for a long time. You're gonna ride it just to see where it goes. How do you think that's made a change in you? And not only just you and like how you podcast, but how you parent, how you father, how you're a better I don't know if you're married or not, but how you're a better partner. Like how do you see that it contributing to those parts and the legacy that you leave behind?
Honestly, bro, it really helped me out in a lot of ways, because it made me look at myself from a different standpoint. You know, it's always, like we talked about earlier, it's always easy to listen to other people talk about stuff. But when you listen to somebody that relates to what you have going on, it just hits a lot different. And for me, I feel like podcasting made me a lot, you know, it changed me because it changed me in the sense of being able to speak and say things that I want to say, but also realizing that, you know, in order for certain people to, you know, receive the information, you have to present it a certain way. Not everybody can take information in its raw form. You know what I mean? So sometimes you have to kind of tweak it, not necessarily sugarcoat, but, you know, sometimes it's how you come off and the things that you say that make people not want to listen to what you say or make people discouraged about what you have to bring to the table. And as far as like that goes, that podcasting made me better in that sense. As far as myself, it made me look at myself and just reflect upon myself and reflect upon the things that I've gone through in life and the adventures and, you know, the trials and tribulations that I've been through, because that's what my podcast is based off of. That's what a lot of the things that I talk about are based off of, or my experiences, and sharing them with other people and connecting them with what's going on and the relevancy of what's going on in today's society. And so every day, you know, I look at myself and I reflect, especially when I'm doing a episode on something like maximizing your time. That was an episode that I did based upon myself because I felt like there were times that I wasn't maximizing my time. Like there were times when, you know, when I say you want to go get those Jordans, you gotta have that same energy. That's the same thing I taught myself. Like, you know, that same energy that I have when there is something that I have my mind set on that I know that I want to do, and no matter what gets in my way, I'm fuck you. Oh yeah, I got something to do. I gotta have that same energy when I'm doing my podcast and when I'm doing things like, you know, in business and things like that in life. So that's how it made me, you know, how it impacted me as far as doing my podcast. And my family life, it impacted me as far as, you know, just being able to be more open-minded, especially with my lady, and having like open-ended conversations and being more and having more communication with my lady. Like we have a strong communication now, but some of the things that I talk about in my podcast and are some of her opinions that I don't agree with. So when I talk about saying that I've had conversations with other people, more than likely she's probably the person I had that conversation with. You know what I mean? And you know, and it's different when you're having a conversation with somebody that you love and you care about, especially a significant other that has your best interest, because you can be real with each other. You can tell somebody, like I could tell her, hey, I'm doing a podcast with Haize, and I'm gonna say this, and she'll be like, nah, babe, you shouldn't say that. That sounds corny. Like, it's whereas I tell somebody else that, you know, they're so, you know, I guess I could say they're so happy and so, you know, just in tune with the fact that I said I'm doing a podcast with Haize. They don't care about what I'm doing or what my idea is. They just heard the bigger picture, and it's like I understand that, but you know, some people, it's good to have in your circle because they tell you information, they tell you things that you're not going to think about. Like somebody might see something in you and be able to tell you something about yourself, not necessarily to be on no hater type shit. Cause you know, everybody, like when you receive something negative or some negative feedback, the first thing everybody says, oh, you're hated. You're a fucking hater. And it's like, no, bro, I'm telling you something because I feel like this is going to better you. And a lot of people think that they're being hated on, and it's like, bro, you ain't even worth hating on. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna tell you that, but you know, it is what it is. Like, you're not even worth hating on. I'm really just trying to help you out. And you know, people just have a big head. So I feel like with podcasting and all that alone, and just in my life, it really helped me out on all different aspects. It helped me out with conversation, how I talk to people. It helped me out with networking, because me myself, like I'm really in tune and content with myself. Like, bro, most of these conversations that I have on my podcast, like, not to sound weird, but these are things that I literally talk out loud with myself and had like out loud thoughts. And it was just like, you know what? This is exactly why I need to do podcasting. Because here I am having these talks with myself, and I have nobody to express my opinion to. When I put it on the podcast, number one, I can't take it back, which is cool because once I say, I mean what I say. But number two, now I'm networking with other people. Now I'm getting more comfortable with expressing my opinions because people are telling me that they value my opinion, not because they agree with it, but because I'm not afraid to say what I want, and I'm educated enough and I'm intelligent enough to uphold a conversation to where people, it just doesn't sound like a bunch of bullshit that I'm just talking because somebody said something and I was just like, oh, and just went on a rant about it. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people just, they talk about things, but they don't really have a meaning behind what they talk about. You know, they talk about things, they say they want to do stuff, but they don't really have a real plan or a real message or for, you know, for example, of this podcast, a legacy that they want to leave behind. They're just doing it just because it's the trend to do or just something to do at that point in time. And for me, you know, podcasting impacted me and changed my life in that aspect because I felt like a lot of the things that I've gone through and a lot of the times where I felt like I wanted to talk to somebody about something and I couldn't, this is the time that I decided to go on podcasting and talk about it and just express my feelings and talk about, you know, what is near and dear to me in society and culture and things that I feel like are relevant and things that I feel like people need to hear about more or less than, you know, entertainment and what the media wants to portray to everybody.
That's a fact. And so when you think about when creating a platform, and so many people create platforms because they think it's going to get them on, they think it's going to get them popular, whatever else. There's a special place for creatives who create a platform for what they can give back. You feel me? It's a completely different mindset that you have to create it, not for what you can gain from it, but what the people who are going to listen to you walk away with it from. Like that's it. Like I've gotten to a place where I'm able to make money off this podcast and shit, whatever else. That shit still does not at all compare to the amount of time, the amount of energy, the amount of preparation, the amount of me coming out of my own freaking bubble. And I do that not because I never thought that I would at one get to having damn near 3,000 people a week listen to my damn podcast. Like I never in my life when I started this did I think that. But I truly feel like I got there because that's not what I wanted. Not what I was aiming for. I wanted everybody who listened to this to feel something when they walked away. And if 3 people listened and 2 out of those 3 people felt something, I did it. I made a promise to myself that I was going to show up like I sold out Madison Square Garden every time I get on this mic.
Oh yeah.
And that's the energy that I come to it with. And it hasn't failed me. Every time I've missed a couple of weeks here lately because I finally started taking time out for myself, but I went over 100 weeks straight without missing an episode of this podcast. And believe you me, that wasn't because I got shit out of that, because there were times where I was tired, sick, and damn near crazy out of my mind, but I still did it because I knew people were gonna get a breakthrough from it. And that's when we talk about this impact section legacy, that's all what it means to us. You have to be willing. I get it. It's your legacy that you leave behind, but it's funny how it works out to be more. Your legacy is more impactful when you don't do it for you, and that's it.
Definitely.
That's it.
Definitely.
That's it. Now, this was a two-tone conversation. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about the revenue portion of this, and I want to attack it from a different way.
Okay.
And that is that, and I put this question on the list, is that a lot of people say money is the root of all evil. Do you believe that?
That's I say it's tough, but it's really like so simple. Like I don't think money in general is the root of all evil. Mm-hmm. I think it's the things that people do for money and the things that people are willing to do and the things that, you know, the morals that people are willing to break for money. Yeah. You know, and I think people say that money is the root of all evil, but at the same time, it's not. Money didn't personally do anything to you. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's the fact that somebody has something that you don't have. It's the fact that somebody has a certain amount of money and people are jealous or people envy people because they have a lot of money. Oh, you got so much money, you ain't doing nothing with it. Why you can't let me hold nothing? Like it's things like that that bring the evil out of people. So I don't think money is the root of all evil. I just think that people, you know, are willing to do anything for money because money is what empowers the world and what makes the world go round. If you don't have money, then what are you? You know what I mean? And money is almost like money, I feel like is a huge part of your legacy. in a sense, because when people look at your legacy, they want to say, "Oh, he was able to do this. He was able to provide for his family." They don't just look at your legacy and say, "Oh yeah, Sherrod was a very nice guy." You know, I mean, people would
Yeah.
say that, but at the same time, when people look at, I guess for celebrities, when we look at celebrities' legacies, we think about how much money they made. We think about
Mm-hmm.
the amount of creativity or the amount of work that they've produced that has generated them so much money. Like when we look at Bill Gates, we look at Microsoft and we look at how much money he's generated from Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
We don't look at Bill Gates and say, oh, Bill Gates was a very humble person. He was a very, aspirational type of guy, very inspirational. He inspired me to do all these things and to help all these people and to do all these things for all these different types of charities. They don't look at Bill Gates and say that. They look at Bill Gates and say, this guy is worth billions of dollars and he owns all of this stuff because of Microsoft. And that's what I want to do. That's what I want. And it's fucked up that he can have this and I'm over here struggling. And people, you know what I mean? Like people tend to they look at somebody else's monetary value and how much revenue they bring in. And instead of just, congratulating them and being happy for them, they use that to fuel the hate inside of them and to give themselves a reason on why they need to go and kill that person or why they need to go and rob that person or go and hit this lick or to go and set them up is because they have something that that person wants. And it's that sense of, you know, if I can't have it, then nobody can have it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I don't think money is the root of all evil. I think greed is the root of all evil. And like, don't get me wrong. Everyone has a sense of greed in them in some shape, form, or fashion. We're all humans. We all have it. And I think
Definitely.
once people, like a lot of people on the pursuit to money, they usually have noble ideas. Like they want money to help provide a lifestyle for their family, or they're trying to look for money because they think that they could do XYZ with money. But then I think it's once you get that and that pursuit is over, if you being humble leaves and the greed takes over, that's what makes people start making them say the root of all evil is money, because it's really that demon we all have in us anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the root. When you talk about root means something that's implanted in you. If money was the root of all evil, a lot of evil people would be fucking rich to start with. There are a lot of evil
Exactly.
motherfuckers who broke as shit, but you know why you don't see that they're evil? Because they ain't got shit. So like,
Exactly.
that's not the root. It's rooted in you, and I think a lot of times too, like you said, it's once somebody gets to a level of money, of having a certain amount of money, that's all we talk about. We don't talk about the charities that they like. How often do you hear about charities that people donate to? You really don't. How often do you hear people ask about that? You don't. They just
Exactly.
focus on, oh, like you said, they're on the Forbes list this year, not knowing that secretly, or not even secretly, but they gave tens and thousands of dollars to the Boys and Girls Club. But we don't talk about that. We're talking about what it looked like, how many stacks they throwing in the music videos, what they doing with this.
Exactly.
You see what car they drove here, like, and so, and there are a lot of celebrities that do give, and we just don't talk about it. But I really think that the root of all evil is us, and I think that you can use money to be as impactful as anything else, because what you do with your money. For example, let's go back to LeBron. When you look at LeBron, his whole squad, they all aren't very educated. They have one of the biggest sports agencies in the world. LeBron's he's financed so many films that people wouldn't even know about. And so that's what you can do with money that adds to your legacy. Rich
Exactly.
Paul's legacy in sports, being someone who didn't even go to school for sports representation or agency, and has the big that man can almost every athlete hopes to be represented by his company now. And what he did with his money, what he did with it, and how he used, and LeBron used his money to put his people on, not just give them money, but to give them platforms of things they were truly passionate about. That's how you can use money to add to your legacy. That's how you can use money to help push not forward you, but the people around you. Now, not everyone does that, but I think that's the things that we need to look at so much, is stop just giving people money and create things. And this is something that we talked about on the Breaks Radio, my other podcast. Is, for example, we Clubhouse just got $1 billion valuation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny if people have flocked to that, but I guarantee you, if Joe Budden, who's somebody who's very active on I think that motherfucker lives on Clubhouse because he has a room going all the goddamn time. But outside of that, if Joe Budden would have started his own version of Clubhouse, we wouldn't have supported it the way that we did.
Facts.
We make so many other companies and so many other things money, and then we want to talk about like legacy. We support our own when they already get to a certain level.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, it's like, okay, yeah, it's good that you support them, but like why does it take? We still don't have a black-owned car manufacturer, but yet we all drive motherfucking cars. You feel me?
Exactly.
And I guarantee you, if me and you started our own car company, we couldn't have a lot of money to have the best design right away. Black-owned car manufacturer, the car looks, it's okay. It's a 4-door sedan. People be like, oh no, I'm gonna go buy this Impala.
Yep.
You feel me?
Exactly.
And so when you want to talk about money being the root of all evil, what you support with your money matters as well. And we don't support our own, so you can't talk about something being the root of all evil when there's somebody positive right now, a good brother who's starting something up. Are you going to support them? Probably not.
Exactly. And a lot of people want to see that. They want to, like we talked about earlier, they want to see that finishing product. Like before you support somebody, they want to see the perfect image, and a lot of people don't want to see growth. And I feel like for me, like growth is like this is the beauty in growth that I like. I like when I can look at somebody's stuff or somebody's, podcast or whatever kind of videos I'm watching. If it's something that I'm really into as far as a philosophical and like going deep, I can watch their progression. I can watch them get better. And a lot of people don't want to see that. They don't care to see when your podcast wasn't shit, or when you didn't have all the equipment, or when your podcast sounded like shit, and then it progressed to the film, and it progressed into you becoming an audio engineer and all. They just want to see that final product. They want to see that video that Haize made. You know what I mean? They don't want to see all the shit that you went through and all the struggles and all the takes you had to do to shoot that shot the perfect way. They don't want to see none of that. They want to see the finishing product and the final touches. And I feel like for me, I enjoy the beauty of growth. I like watching things like that, and I like seeing the growth in people because it encourages me that, and it lets me know and it humbles me that, I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. We all deserve things, but we all have room to grow. And if we're not going to sit here and look at ourselves and say that this is something that I can perfect about myself or something I can change about myself, then we're never going to be open to anything when it comes to having a conversation with anybody, if we're not willing to be open-minded about the things that we could change about ourselves.
Self-change is hard. Like, how many people do you see on social media talking shit about what other people do, but have you changed yourself? Have you changed yourself? Like, people always want to incite change or call out what needs to be changed, but you ain't changed the damn shit. The thing about change starts internally. If you can't change inside, I don't give a fuck what you got to say about nothing else you talking about.
Exactly.
Man, listen. And then as far just to stay on money a little bit real quick, I want to get your mind on this, right?
Okay.
How many people do you think if you were to go and give 3 people $100,000, how many of them do you think 3 years from now will be broke again?
I would say 2. 2 out of the 3 will probably be broke again.
Yeah. And that's what's sad, right? Is because like we chase all these things, and like I always say this, right? Oprah can come and write a check right now that could change me in your life, and it wouldn't even affect her. She can literally come and write us a $500,000 check each, and it wouldn't even be a blip on her bank account, right?
Definitely.
But the thing is that most people, if they're given those opportunities, they may try to go start a company. They may try to buy a house or whatever, but they blow the shit away. Our people, we don't know enough, and I know this is maybe a little weird to say now, is like investments, for example. We don't talk about the stock market in the black culture very often.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we talk about generational wealth, we talk about how do we build. A lot of these white families, If you, like when you look at people who like, how did they make their money? It's because they did it on the stock market, and then once they got to a certain place, they were like there are a lot of people who whole entire fortunes are self-sustained by playing the stock market. They don't work, they don't do shit else. They sit there and watch the stock market, and so many of us like we are. Black people are the biggest hustlers, and we will make freaking a gourmet meal out of a few leaves, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yet we don't think about systematic things like the stock market. And we don't talk about that, and we still have that crab in the bucket mentality that affects us so much. We live in the right now, and I'll say for a large part we had to live in the right now, because if we didn't live in the right now, black people for a while would not live if you try to go out of that, right?
Definitely,
But we're not
definitely.
in that. We're not in that anymore. We sit there and we worry about a lot of things that are in the right now, and we ain't got no retirements for our children after we're long. They're struggling. Like so much of this shit, and it's just ingrained in our culture not to do. So again, if you want to talk about money, if you want to talk about how can you use that to impact your legacy, because that's what we're here to discuss today. When you look at the stock market, look at getting a huge, because you're going to die at some point. You can at least leave your kids something. If you're not making enough money to push in the savings account for them, think about what you can do with insurance. But we don't think about that. We don't like going to doctors. We don't like doing none of this shit that other cultures
Definitely.
do so often. You feel me? And then want to talk about why our money isn't stretching and why we can't build generational wealth. You're not even thinking for the next generation. You thinking for the right now.
Mm-hmm. And I think that really comes from. I talked about this with somebody the other day. I'm glad you said that. I think that really comes from the systematic chain of how our society has always been trained. Like we've always, as far as like black people, and I hate to like narrow it down to one race, but I'm just talking about us because we're black men, so we could talk about this from a personal standpoint. I feel like the system has always been set up to make sure that we don't become millionaires, to make sure that we're not one of those people who are wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And that sense of society has been going for generation after generation after generation, where all our ancestors have known is the right now. I have to make the money for right now, because for right now I have to put food on the table for my family. Right now I can't afford to put no money and invest it into this stock, because right now my lights are about to get cut off, or right now, you know what I mean, my heat's about to get cut off, and I need to make sure that my kids can take a hot shower. So
Yeah.
I feel like, I totally agree with what you said. Like, nowadays it's not all about the right now. There's so many educated people that are willingly giving out game, but it's just something as simple as us. Like, and as the saying goes, like, if you want to keep a nigga from learning something, put that shit in a book. You know
Mm.
what I mean? And a lot of
Bro,
people
how many people in
don't.
our culture gladly say, I don't read books? That shit blows my
Facts,
mind every time, bro. Like, you don't read?
facts,
Like, come on,
facts.
man.
And I used to be one of those people. Like, I used to, like, for a while, I always thought that not reading was like literally what it was. Like, you can't read, like you're illiterate, you
Mm-hmm.
can't read. But at the same time, it's like, once I started getting into reading a little bit, now I'm not very active in reading, but I do read from time to time now, especially more. But when I first started getting into reading, I started understanding why people said, if you want to keep something from a nigga, put it in a book, because there's so much stuff that you find in a book, and it's just like, nobody wants to take the time and
Mm-hmm.
the energy to sit down and open a book and read, because it's boring, or because it's time consuming, or there's so many other better things that I could do, or I could go on YouTube and find the same information, which nowadays you essentially
Yeah.
can go on YouTube and find the same information without reading the book. But at the same time, there's going to be gems that you're going to find in a book that somebody like me or you might not say. Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? There's always going to be something that's in a book that's going to give you the level of education on something that you can never receive from the words of somebody's mouth or a video that you see.
That's fact. Yeah, that's fact. And that's it. I think we hit the nail on every head here. I don't know.
Oh
I
yeah,
told you when I was texting you, somebody's gonna get their breakthrough from this, and I guarantee you, somebody's gonna take a gym from this, and they're gonna be like, "God damn, these niggas was spitting,
hell
was
yeah,
spitting."
hell yeah,
Um,
hell yeah. That's what we do it for, bro. We do it for moments like this, to be able to talk about some real shit
yeah,
and give people an insight and let them know that there, I know you got some shit going on, I know you got your struggles and things like that, but from two black men that have gone through the same things and deal with the same things that you deal with on a daily basis, it just goes to show that, we can all make something of ourselves and we can all be productive and we can all be somebody. It's up to us to push ourselves through the trials and tribulations to get there.
That's a fact, man. That's a fact. Um, that's it, bro. You got anything left for the people, man? Anything left on your spirit? I feel like we unloaded a whole clip on them today.
Yeah, man. I think we unloaded the whole clip, bro. I think, I don't think there's too much more we can go on as far as this episode. Now, of course, we
Oh, we
went back
got other
every
shit.
week and said,
We got shit
oh
in the
yeah,
works. We gonna have this. This isn't gonna be a one time appearance. We got other.
facts,
We got
facts.
other shit. We gonna reload the clip and we'll be back. We'll definitely be
Yes,
back.
sir. Yes,
But
sir.
go ahead. Give them your social media, bro. Tell them where they can follow you. All that good stuff.
All right. Well, if everybody wants to follow me on my personal Instagram, you can follow me at your boy Rod. You can follow my podcasting platform on Facebook. That's the Blunt Effect Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at the Blunt Effect Podcast. Follow me on Apple Podcasts and all podcasting networks at the Blunt Effect Podcast. And if you enjoy doing what I like doing, then maybe you should take some time out and, come vibe with me.
There you go, man. You can follow me at CEO Haize. You can follow the podcast at Awaken Soul Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, theawakensoulpod@gmail.com. And last, if you want to leave us a voicemail, you can do so at 614-547-2039. We are the number one podcast for the culture. Me and Rod did that thing, and we out this bitch. Peace.
Yes, sir.
All right, bro. That was fire, man.
Hell yeah.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.